Good afternoon, everyone, and happy Valentine's Day. My name is Natalie O'Rourke, and I'm the Executive Director of the Texas Oncology Foundation. We are very thankful to have you all join us today and excited to have Tamika Felder leading our discussion on intimacy after cancer. The Texas Oncology Foundation was established to provide resources to cancer patients in communities where they live, work, and receive treatment. One of the initiatives we started was our Survive and Thrive programming, which gives an opportunity to cancer patients, survivors, loved ones, and caregivers an opportunity to be educated on a number of survivorship topics. And we're excited to have Tamika discuss one of those very important topics of intimacy. Before we get started, I do want to review some housekeeping announcements, and then we will do a poll, and then we'll hear from Tamika. So if you have any questions throughout, we will take Q&A at the end. And if you have any questions that pop up throughout the presentation, feel free to submit your questions at any time during the webinar. You simply type them into the box on the right side of your screen under the questions tab on your control panel. If you're viewing along with others at your site, dedicate one person there to submit your group's questions, and we will respond to those after Tamika does the presentation. If we do not have time to respond to all questions, we'll see how many questions we get. We try to get through them all, and if we cannot, we will have some type of follow-up. If you're experiencing any trouble with your windows disappearing, slides not advancing, simply close and reopen the webinar window, and that usually fixes the issue. If you're experiencing audio issues, please, the best solution is to call into the webinar and listen over the phone. There is an audio section on your control panel. Select phone call and access the number to call in. Throughout the presentation, we will have some poll questions. When the polls pop up on your screen, simply select your answer, and the presentation will continue after answers have been submitted. In fact, let's take a minute to practice that. We do have one poll question. We would like to know who all is attending this presentation. So however you identify yourself or your primary designation, please select that. Okay, so it looks like we have a majority of survivors attending the call, so that's great information for Tamika. This webinar is being recorded, and the online archive will be available for viewing after the live version. The recording will be sent to everyone in a follow-up email, and it will also be available on the Texas Oncology Foundation webpage, and that's texasoncologyfoundation.org. Okay, let's get to the best part, and that is hearing a presentation from Tamika Felder. For those of you who have not heard Tamika, you're in for a real treat. She is an award-winning producer and host. She speaks internationally, and she is an author and patient advocate. She frequents our Survive and Thrive symposiums as an MC, and she does a breakout session on intimacy. She also does a keynote about life beyond cancer, and she is a 17-year cervical cancer survivor. So Tamika, I will hand this over to you.
Thank you, Natalie, and thank you to each of you who are joining me today. I mean, this is a great day for us to be together, and thank you for taking the time to put yourself first, to love yourself first. I also want to take this time not only to thank Natalie, but also Kelly Condon and everyone at the Texas Oncology Foundation for just being so great and knowing exactly what topics patients really do want to talk about. So it looks like we have 84% of survivors on here, 11% healthcare professionals, 5% healthcare professional, and survivor. I think that's great because it speaks to the point of patients wanting to know more, but also healthcare professionals wanting to be in tune and service their community with what the community needs. So you're definitely in the right place. So we've already talked about it. I'm Tamika Felder. I'm really happy to be here. One of the main things that I want to say, happy Valentine's Day. It doesn't matter if you are solo, if you are coupled up, booed up, whatever. Happy Valentine's Day. This is, we know, a commercialized holiday. We should be loving and cherishing those in our lives every single day. But I always want to say that the best relationship that you have starts with yourself. So the best relationship that you have is going to be with yourself. Whatever you pour out into the world, you have to pour into yourself first. So happy Valentine's Day to all of you lovelies out there. And if you haven't noticed, I'm a little congested and I apologize about that. I always had this super deep, sexy voice. Now it's actually very, very super deep. And so thank you for bearing with me through that. I'll be sipping some water. Hopefully I won't be coughing too much. You may hear me put a cough drop in my mouth. But it's funny. I wanted to share this one screen. Sex is not my jam. In one of the groups that I belong to, a cancer survivor wrote this one day. And I thought, how bold of her. I love that, one, she's putting it out there. Like, sex is not enjoyable for me. You know, since I've gone through cancer treatment, I don't enjoy it. There is no desire. I don't want it. And my partner, he just learns to deal with it. Somehow we're making it through it. And I thought, you know what? That's okay if sex is not your jam. That's why it's so great that we also talk about intimacy, because there is a difference between sex and intimacy. And we want to make sure that you know the difference. But when this patient started talking about it, I also thought, like, what support is she getting? Is she at a place where, look, I never want to think about it. I never want to talk about it. I'm absolutely done with it. Has she gone through all the support, whether it's social, emotional, the clinical side of it? Has she gotten the support that she wanted? And I actually ended up doing a little bit of messaging with her. And she was like, one day I hope to be intimate again. Right now, it's just not it. And I just want to say that if you do not want to participate in the actual act of sex right now, that is okay. You have to do what's best for you. And I'll tell you a quick funny story. Since I've been sick, this is going on like a 2.5 week thing now. My husband took this horrible photo of me when I was sleeping. You know, I'm congested, so I can't breathe out of my nose. So I'm on the pillow with my mouth open. You know, I have a fever. My hair is like Frankenstein piled up. I've got this wild, crazy fro. And he sent it to me in a text message, and he said, look at you. He called me his heavy duty cutie. If you haven't seen a photo of me, I'm a plus size cutie. And I always roll my eyes when he says that. But that is his way of letting me know that he accepts me where I am. And I appreciate that about him. But what helps is that I know those things about myself. No matter what my size, no matter what I'm going through, I'm a person that, you know, is beautiful on the inside and out, even when I'm congested and I have a 103-degree fever. So moving forward, one of my mantras after my cancer diagnosis became, I survived cancer, so I at least deserve a good orgasm, right? I mean, I say that in a little bit of jest, but I also want people to know that for me, having a gynecologic cancer, I thought, you know what? I'm lucky to get out of this thing alive, right? Barely scathed by cancer. I cannot think about my sex life. You know, my doctor did bring up that my type of cancer, because my cancer was in my sexual organs, in the sexual region, that it would impact my sex life. But other than that, there wasn't much. There wasn't much. I wasn't in a relationship at the time. I was single, and I thought, you know, this is it for me. You know, that's why when this woman wrote "Sex is not my jam," I'm like, I can totally relate to that. But as time went by and I started navigating life as from a patient to a survivor. I was like, I'm a sexual being. I want to enjoy sex. I want to participate in the act, but I also want to enjoy it. And, I cannot remember any time back then that there was a webinar with anyone talking about sex. So I'm really appreciative of this opportunity to do so. When I was growing up, I never thought I'm going to be talking about sex, but I want to empower patients to use their voices. I also want clinicians to know that you have to bring up this conversation, because the truth is, for the patients on the phone, your clinicians don't want to talk about sex either. So we all have to make sure that somebody brings up the conversation, the topic. If it's not you, the provider has to do it. And I want to say it's the provider's job to absolutely do it. For both parties, neither one wants to talk about sex, and we have to stop making sex such a taboo subject. So we've already talked about this. I'm a 17-year cervical cancer survivor. I was diagnosed in 2001 at 25. I had a radical hysterectomy that sent me into menopause, chemotherapy, radiation. I lost my fertility. So there became all this emotional side of it as not feeling desirable, that no one would want to marry me because I'm barren and I can't have children. I can't procreate. And so you start putting all these things on top of you. You talk about, the burdens of the world. Those are those individual burdens that kind of bear down on you. And, when you go through cancer, you don't feel sexy. You from steroids, you gain weight or you lose a ton of weight. You have scars. I had bad radiation burns. And so these are things that really just did not make me feel desirable. It didn't make me feel like I wanted to be desired. I just really wanted to just crawl up and just be in a corner and stay there. And cancer comes in, and I always tell people cancer is a cancer. It comes in and it affects every single thing. And the worst thing that it does is the emotional damage that it does to you. So why am I talking about this? I'm not a psychologist. I'm not a therapist. I'm just a girl who is navigating, just like many of you, your life after cancer. And so I'm sharing with you from the patient side of it, the things that I've learned, firsthand being a patient, firsthand in the dating world, firsthand becoming a wife, and having, expectations of a partner that I couldn't fulfill because my body just wouldn't give back in that way. And so I hope that today's presentation, if you've heard this before, maybe you're listening at a different place in your life and you're hearing things through a new lens. If this is your first time, maybe you and hopefully will pick up some great tools that you'll be able to share with others. I'm the founder of Survivor. Survivor.org is for cervical cancer survivors. We talk a lot about sex because, again, this cancer affects the vaginal region, the reproductive area. And so I make sure that this is a topic that we constantly talk about. Newsweek magazine made me a cancer rebel, specifically for talking about sex. You can't see it, but very small down there it says I'm an intimacy pioneer. I don't know if I would say that. I would just say, I want to talk about cancer because it's a topic that needs to be discussed. Cancer and sex. Why is nobody talking about it? And it's for the reasons that I said earlier. Sex is still a taboo subject. I remember being in health class and everybody, laughing and, being embarrassed and just, because we've already built up that we should not be talking about sex. I have a 16-year-old stepdaughter. She's so used to me talking about sex. But when she asked me questions, I would be lying to all of you if I didn't say I had that initial moment of, oh my God, what do I say? But then I'm like, it's better she get the information from me than somewhere else. So I want this to be a conversation starter, even if it's just a conversation with yourself and you're writing in your journal. But we have to talk about it. Sex is a part of human nature. It's not a bad thing. It's a good thing. and cancer impacts sex life. So I want to make sure that we're talking about it. Um, there's a testicular cancer survivor that I met a few years ago, and I was so moved by him because one of the things that he shared in this Newsweek article is impotency to a guy is so much more than your thing doesn't function. It's like you're not a man. How do you say to people, I'm not a man? That's how I felt when I lost, the top third of my vagina, when I, lost those things that I thought made me a woman. I didn't feel like a woman. So what do you do? And I am so proud when people can speak out boldly and loudly about these things so that other people know that they do not have to be alone. And so men as well need to make sure that they're getting support. There are 60% of cancer patients who have some type of sexual dysfunction. 60%. That is a huge number. Cancer patients are living longer and longer. And, we are diagnosed younger. We are living life through young adult, through middle age. And I don't know about you all, but I plan to be having sex until I leave here. God willing, I am going to be partaking and enjoying in some sort of sexual activity until I leave here. So this number, I'd like to see this number decrease. And that number will only decrease once we start this conversation. So the conversation starts with yourself. If you have a journal, or your notes on your phone, write what is it that you want, that you're missing most. Sometimes it's just the craving of, that emotional, having someone to cuddle with. Have you seen now, I saw this on social media, that there are people who are paid cuddlers. Their job is to actually cuddle with people. And so there is something to that human connectivity that people want to connect on that level. So it's very important that you figure out what your needs are. Write them down. Now, the next step would be sharing them with your partner or sharing them with your clinician. A lot of times now you can email your doctor and say, this is what I'm dealing with, whether it's a low libido, whether, it's vaginal dryness, whether it's pain where organs used to be those phantom types of symptoms. But there are so many things that can now help you get to the next level. And so for those people who are, dealing with the loss of multiple organs, I want you to get out of your head that sex just has to be a penetrative type of sex. And so as we go through these surgeries and treatments and different things, we have to start looking at sex in a different light. What worked for you in the past is not necessarily going to work for you in the future. And I've been right where you've been. And I have to remind myself, even now, almost 18 years later, that this is your new normal. And I hate that term so much because as much as it is new for us, the individual, there's nothing normal about it. But I'm going to use that term because that's what's often used in the cancer community. Now, this quote is from another cancer patient. She's actually a cervical cancer survivor. And she says, all the king's horses and all the king's men couldn't put Humpty back together again. Just like the nursery rhyme, sometimes when something is broken, it can't be put back together again. Now, would you agree with that? If we had a poll going, I bet most of you on this call would say yes, that you absolutely do agree with that. Because that is how, for most of us, we feel in general, but especially when we cannot be intimate again. And so I want you to know that you are not alone. Your status also doesn't matter, whether you're single, dating, married, engaged, widowed, heterosexual, homosexual, your prerogative. It absolutely does not matter. I know when I was single, I hated this day, Valentine's Day, even if I was getting together with a friend, I would be happy, I would be excited, but then there are all the social media posts. There are all the couples out there, and it makes you feel like, why hasn't it happened for me? Why hasn't it happened for me? There's some people who are okay with being single. But if you are not, then you got to do something about it. If online dating isn't your thing, be old school. Go out, and meet people. You're not going to meet anyone just Netflixing and chilling on your couch. So you have to do something about it. But the truth is, for me, the status doesn't matter because it all begins with yourself. It's how you love yourself, how you treat yourself, and what you're going to pour back in. And I always give this homework assignment. Are you worthy of dating? Are you worthy of being in a relationship? What type of person would you be in a relationship? When we talk about intimacy, like, what are you going to do for yourself today? So part of my self-care is always going to be my self-home spa, making sure that my skin feels good, it's sensual. But what do you do to do that? I'm a product junkie. So I've got lotions from everywhere. When I went to Australia, there was some placenta lotion or whatever. I didn't buy it, but I tried it on. I was like, oh my God, it makes my skin feel so good. So whether you are, like I said, singled or booed up, you always have to set the mood for yourself. So if your doctor's giving you dilators or other devices or techniques to use, and if you don't know what I'm talking about, this means that you need to go ahead and send an email to your doctor. But set the mood. Play your favorite type of sensual music. Take a warm sensual bath or shower. Have a glass of wine. If wine isn't your thing, have some sparkling cider. Read erotica. Get a massage or give one to yourself. And, this may make some people blush, but toys, and absolutely not the kitty kind. You can get a lot of things off Amazon. I believe that even if you're not using it in a penetrative way, everyone should have a butterfly, a beaver, or a bullet. And again, even if you're just putting it on your skin and massaging in that way, a shower massager, a hand wand, fellas too, those are things that can relax you, it can calm you, and it can help you. A lot of people have a lot of anxiety about the actual act of sex, which is why I really do like to talk about intimacy and becoming one and in tune with your body and what your likes are, what your dislikes are, the things that, maybe you liked before, but they aren't necessarily. Taking time to explore your new likes, your new wants, your new desires. And so when we do these things, we want people to know that there will be pain. It's frustrating, it's hard, but there really is pain that can be associated with the intimate act of going through. And I just wanted to make sure I didn't skip this one thing. So there will be pain, you will get frustrated, but you have to know that things get better. And it takes time. When I say this, sometimes people freak out, and it just depends. There are lots of variables. What type of cancer treatment did you have? Where was your cancer? But for me, it took a long time to figuratively, literally get back on the saddle again. I remember my radiation oncologist telling me that, during this time, we don't want you to have any sex at all. And I thought to myself, why would I try to have sex? It feels like someone took a hammer and was beating my vagina over and over again. Literally, that's how much pain I was in. But also I learned a lesson that, if you don't lose it, if you don't use it, you could actually lose it. And so for me, I had vaginal atrophy where the vagina tightens up and it almost can close. And in some cases, when it comes to GYN cancers, there are instances where that does absolutely happen. And so that's where dilators and things like that come into practice. I always tell people, dilators are great, but they're very clinical. if you want something fun, go to Amazon or to your local toy store and get something that's a little bit more fun and a little bit more colorful and a little bit more motion in the ocean, if you know what I mean. But you have to practice at these things. You have to share with your doctor if you have, pain that continues, if there's any bleeding, you have to keep practicing. But you have to have that also communication where you talk to your doctor or your nurse. I have what I call my new best friends. And so you have to come up with what are your bag of tricks. When I was dating and I was trying to kind of navigate back into this world, I dated someone who was not kind to me at all. We went away for a romantic weekend and we tried to be intimate with each other, and it just wasn't working. There was a lot of dryness, there was a lot of blood, and he said something to me to the effect of, well, I guess that's what this weekend is going to be all about. And of course, I felt defeated. It was in my head. And then I thought, let me just try again. So I said to him, let's try again. And he in turn said to me, that's all we'll be doing is trying. And I was defeated. And the reason why I'm sharing this is twofold for you. You don't want someone just being a jerk to you. So that matters. Speak up. Make sure that your partner is not devaluing you and they know that you are trying your best. This is where couples counseling, individual therapy really does come into play. And I'm a proponent of therapy. I know that there are communities of color where we think that, or just people in general, that I don't need to see someone. Seeing a therapist has been the best thing ever for me on so many different levels of my life. And so I would recommend it for everyone. But definitely there are great sex therapists out there like Sage Bolte, who's in the Virginia area. But she does speak around the country about this, who's an excellent person. And could definitely share. You can go onto the AFECT website and find someone that's local to you, or reach out to your Texas Oncology nurse or social worker, and they can surely help find someone for you. But figure out what's going to be in your bag of tricks and figure out what you need to help you in those intimate moments. Like I said, I think that it begins at home when you're doing your self-care. Tonight, if you're at home, you can go on Pinterest, and they're great do-it-yourself masks for males, for females, for anyone really. And you can do a nice scrub. You can do whatever. Get just starting loving on yourself again. Another great resource is The Will to Love. This is a website that's in partnership with the American Cancer Society, and it's a great resource that's specifically for cancer survivors and their loved ones. And it's done by a sex therapist called Dr. Leslie Shover, who lives in Texas and who is just incredible. And she's been doing this work for an extremely long time. And I think that if you're serious about making sure that you are reigniting your sex life, you have to use resources like this. You have to go in and figure out what's not working for you. Figure out what your partner needs. Because the other issue too is your partner needs to understand the new normal, and they may have to talk to someone. They may need to talk to another partner, another caregiver. And I know that some people freak out about speaking to other people about sex. I mean, if we're not talking to our doctors, then we're obviously not going to be talking to other people. But this is a time when you can absolutely talk to other people and make sure that you're on the right track, like literally of getting yourself back in the groove. You've got a lot of homework that I want to give you. It really is about making sure that, this is about pleasure, right? When we talk about loving yourself, when we talk about intimacy, when we talk about making sure that we're getting back in the groove of things, we want to make sure that you're having fun, because if you're not having fun, what's the point? You want that pleasure to be something euphoric. You want to remember it. You want to think, gosh, I had a great time for myself in the shower the other morning, or, I'm enjoying this again. Because after cancer, sex can seem like such a daunting task, like something that you absolutely don't want to do. It can actually feel like, just giving up. I can't tell you how many patients have shared with me that they have literally just given up on having a sex life. And I understand how they get there, but I want to make sure before you give up, because I feel like every person, it's their right to do what they want, but you've exhausted every avenue of getting yourself back to where you want to be. So I'm going to quickly go back through this because I feel like I skipped a slide, and maybe I didn't, but I wanted to make sure. And we might be ending a little early, but hopefully you all have lots of questions for me. This is all of my contact information, social media. If, when I did this last time, people emailed me, they reached out to me on social media. Feel free to do that. I never want you to think that you are alone, because you absolutely are not. There are lots of tools out there that, like I said, can help you on getting back on this path of being intimate again. There are creams, there's pills, there's vaginal rejuvenation. They are, different mechanisms that, can be replaced, in different organ spots that, were removed because of cancer. These are all things that can kind of help you guide you back onto your path. And I want to make sure that you have the tools and the resources that you need. And so I know we're a little early, but I want to take this time to see if there are any questions on the line.
Tamika, thank you. Your presentation is always great, very dynamic, and you take such a sensitive topic and you really know how to relate to folks. And so thank you for that awesome presentation. We did receive some good questions, and so let me start with the first one. How to, this one, maybe talk a little bit more about how to get over that anxiety about having sex.
Each person is just such an individual, and it's so different. And like I said, I've been there. I will share the story, and it mortifies my husband and my stepdaughter. But I believe that, in sharing, you can help someone else. So the first time for me when I did it, after I felt, and I took a very long time, because, I'm also dealing with body image issues for being a plus size girl. And I mean, I know even if you're thin, you can have body image issues. So this anxiety starts, right? And then it's like, it's always like nerve wracking. And for me, I was like, okay, I called it my new vagina. My new vagina is going to do right by me. It's going to hold up. And no, my new vagina did exactly what I thought it was going to do. It bled like a murder scene. And I know there's going to be some wide-eyed people listening to this. But I'm telling you these things so that you know that you can never truly prepare 100% for the, the unexpected. But all those thoughts that you have in your head, you have to quiet the mind. You have to start meditating. If you pray, you have to, pray for some peace. You have to really start quieting the mind when it comes to actually that moment. Get out of your head and enjoy it. Start thinking about the afterglow. Think about the touch. Think about the kissing. Thinking about the person, or, if you're alone, think about, who you're with. think about what that feeling means to you, and try to get out of your head, because what you're going to do is you're going to conjure up like all these bad, vibes that are going to lead you to a place where you're so anxiety ridden that it's going to not turn out the way you want anyway, because you can't focus on the actual task. So I would make the task the focus.
I
I
think
hope
that's
that helps.
great. Let me just pause for a second and say that we have a few questions, and so I'm going to keep going through them. But if you have any questions, we do encourage you to post those questions, and we have some time, so we're going to try to get through them all. Tamika, the next question, my breast cancer was ER positive. Are there any vaginal daily moisturizers that would be safe and effective? Do you have any suggestions?
There are, but those are the ones where you should really talk to your provider. That's going to be really important. If you want to email them or call them, but there are definitely things out there that can help you. For me, I didn't have breast cancer, but there were some vaginal creams that I had to get off because of hormone issues and things like that. So there really are a lot of things out there on the market that can help you, but you need to make sure that you are talking to your clinician.
Good advice there. So this is a good question. It goes back to the body image challenge and issue that you brought up, Tamika. For those of us who have had medical procedures, pokes and prods in the sexual area, how do you recommend people get past that mentally? That's one. That's the first question. And second to that, and see our bodies as sexual rather than medical experiments.
It's really hard. So, one of my survivor sisters, she refers to her body as her Frankenstein body, okay? And I understand that. It's like the pieces are like sewn, put back together again. Myself, I have from my belly button to my vaginal lips, so on the front side, you can see every single staple. You can see the knife where it was cut. On the back side, I have really bad radiation burns, and it's just not sexy. And then on top of that, I'm dealing with this big belly, all this other stuff. But I've learned to love my post-cancer body. And how do you do that? How do you start doing it? So I thank my post-cancer body for helping me get here, right, where I am today. I thank my post-cancer body for being this vessel to still allow me to do these things. So this is where you have to kind of shift the visualization. So shift the narrative that you tell yourself. Start with exercises when you wake up in the morning. What things are you telling yourself? When you're brushing your teeth, if you're looking in the mirror while you're doing that, are you starting with negative talk or are you starting with positive talk? Start thinking your body. So when I get upset with my body and I think, well, what if I had, a supermodel body? It would still be, torn apart and sliced and diced with all these scars. And then I immediately reframe those messages that I'm telling myself, and I start thinking about your body carries you every single day. Your body was strong enough to help you make it through this treatment. Your body is beautiful because it is uniquely yours. And so I think it starts with you shifting the narrative, or I know it starts with you shifting that narrative. It starts with you stopping the negative talk and increasing the positive talk and pointing out those things. And it's okay, there are things that I do not like about my body, but I also have to love my body because it is my one and only body.
I think that's great perspective, Tamika. I have another question. How do you approach your doctor and have this discussion?
Last year, 2 years ago, I was at a medical conference, and it was with oncology clinicians, right? Who dealt from every spectrum of oncology, breast cancer, GYN cancers, male cancers, what have you. And overwhelmingly, there were so many doctors who felt so uncomfortable with bringing up the topic of sex. And on one hand, I was shocked, but on the other hand, I wasn't. I had one doctor come up to me later and she said, I have a patient who was in her 70s, and it never dawned on me to ask her how was her sex life. And I asked her, I said, well, why not? And I cut her out. I said, because you just assumed that she wasn't having sex. She was like, you're right. I can't tell you how many patients, 70 plus, 80 years old, who are still desire to have a sex life, who want a sex life. And so for me, it is a very hard conversation. And I understand that it's a hard conversation also for patients. But if your doctor doesn't bring it up, I implore you to bring it up some type of way, even if it's with the nurse, if it's sending an email, if it's calling on the phone, if you can't have those conversations in person. And I always tell those people too. So if you're in that waiting room, in the oh my God, I can't even, not the waiting room, but in the room and you're seeing the doctor in the doctor's visit, and you don't have your clothes on yet, it's okay to say to your doctor, can I get dressed and ask you some more questions? It's totally okay to do that so that you feel more comfortable. A lot of times we're behind this little piece of paper or this gown and we're asking questions that are already uncomfortable while we're uncomfortable. And so think about the scope of how and where you're asking the questions. If you have the capabilities of emailing your doctor, it may be easier for you to do it via email than having a one-on-one conversation. But these are questions that you absolutely have to ask. You're not going to get to the next level of your life after cancer when it comes to sexuality and intimacy if you don't speak up and use your voice.
That's great. I have another question. How do you get your spouse to want to be intimate? This particular person said that their spouse is having issues with seeing them or thinking of them as being delicate.
Right. And let me just say, like, that is a normal response. And, this is where you have to also use your voice and talk to them. Take their hands, bring them into you and let them know, like, I'm ready. Thank you for caring so much about me. Yes, be gentle with me. But maybe, you turn the tables and like, I'm ready for you to be a little bit more rowdy or whatever. But it is hard because they've seen you go through this thing where you were at your lowest of lows. And, I think it also is the side of a compassionate caregiver. When they do want to be gentle with you, when they want to make sure that they don't harm you in some type of way. And so you have to show that, these scars, that, the ones that are seen and the ones that aren't, yes, they may still be there, but I am ready to be loved in a full way yet again, and I don't think I want you to say like pound on me, baby, but if that's the relationship that you have with your partner, let them know, let them see that side of you that is 100% ready to be fulfilled that way.
This is really, Tamika, I think we had a poll question that we thought about doing, and for some reason we didn't get to, but I'm interested now that you answered, all of these questions have been excellent and you've given really great responses. I wonder if we could put up the last poll question and see the folks that are on could answer this. Now, after this presentation, what is your comfort level with, can you take this to your physician and talk about, with discussing sex and intimacy with your clinician? So can you select one? If you're still on the call, how do you feel now after this?
Yeah, I'm interested to see these poll questions too.
I think this is great. We're teetering between, okay, we got about 57%. I'm comfortable discussing it now. So that's great. That's really great.
And so
okay.
let me just say really quickly, Natalie, for those, I see we have about 6% still not comfortable, 41% somewhat comfortable, and that's good too. So if you're somewhat comfortable, figure out what would help you get comfortable. So what's going to get you over that hump, right? Is it, like I said, writing out to yourself what's going to help you? Is it questions once I'm ready for my doctor? So that's one of the things that I had to do. I had a little notebook, and I'm like, when I'm ready, these are the questions that I'm going to have to ask my doctor. And eventually I got to the point where I felt more comfortable. For those of you who are not comfortable, that's okay too, right? So you're going to do the same thing. What's going to help you get to the next level? If you're not comfortable talking to your doctor, are you comfortable talking to a friend? Are you comfortable, talking to a fellow cancer survivor in a cancer support group? Figure out, okay, I'm not ready yet in that way, but in what way can I be ready and be more comfortable?
Thank you. We do not have any more questions, but I do have a comment, and I want to from somebody. It said, "I survived cancer, so I deserve a good orgasm." This really resonates. Great webinar. So, Tamika, your words are always impactful, and so thank you again for presenting on this topic. If you have not gotten enough of Tamika, and I know you're all shaking your head, no, you have not. You have an opportunity to meet her and see her over the next few weeks. We have 3 Survive and Thrive symposiums in the next 3 weeks. We have one in San Antonio this Saturday. Although I should mention that one is sold out, but we will be in Longview, Texas next Saturday, February 23rd, in Austin, Texas, March 2nd. And then skipping ahead to April, we will be in Waco, Texas. So Tamika joins us for those. She MCs an exciting day. She does an in-depth intimacy discussion and breakout. So if you have not gotten enough of her, you should join us. This brings our webinar to a close. A survey will open on your screen. If you would not mind, please take a minute and answer those questions and provide us feedback on today's presentation, as well as topics that you would like to see covered in future webinars. So we appreciate all of you for joining, and have a wonderful Valentine's Day.